don't know who's playing. And so there's just a lot of distractions, but I think that's really good for us. Let's go through the adversity early. Let's learn from it. Good news is we're not going to peak too early. So, I mean, that's a positive.
In a shocking turn of events, Sophie Cunningham, one of the most prominent and vocal players for the Phoenix Mercury, has confirmed what many had long suspected. The locker room is deeply divided and tensions are running high within the team. This isn't just a casual disagreement among players. It's a rift that is affecting the entire squad's morale and chemistry. What makes this even more explosive is that Cunningham didn't hesitate to place the blame for this chaotic environment directly on the shoulders of head coach Stephanie White. Cunningham's candid admission has sent ripples throughout the basketball world, leaving fans, analysts, and insiders wondering, what exactly is going on in the Mercury's locker room and how did things deteriorate to this point? This revelation is a game changer, sparking a much-needed discussion about the leadership, coaching style, and internal dynamics of the Phoenix Mercury. In this video, we're going to dive deep into what Sophie Cunningham's comments really mean, the history behind the growing divide within the Phoenix Mercury locker room, and the factors that have led to this moment. We'll also explore how this controversy might affect the team's future, particularly as they navigate the challenges of repairing relationships and rebuilding trust. Stick with us as we break down everything you need to know about the situation and what this could mean for the Mercury moving forward. Sophie Cunningham's comments came during a candid interview where she revealed some harsh truths about the Phoenix Mercury's internal struggles. For months, there had been whispers about tension within the team. Players seemed frustrated with their roles, the offensive system appeared stagnant, and the overall chemistry on the court was noticeably lacking. Despite this, the full extent of the problem had remained largely unspoken, leaving fans and analysts alike to speculate about what was happening behind the scenes. But Cunningham's bold comments were the first to openly confirm that things were far worse than anyone had imagined, and she did not hold back. Fractionally, she admitted that the locker room was split, a startling admission that highlighted the deep-rooted issues within the squad. Cunningham painted a picture of an environment filled with frustration, tension, and a noticeable lack of cohesion, something that was affecting the team's dynamics both on and off the court. While it's not unusual for teams to experience occasional conflicts, Cunningham made it clear that this was much more than just a minor disagreement. It was a serious problem that was threatening to derail the Mercury's performance and morale. What really raised eyebrows, however, was Cunningham's direct blame of head coach Stephanie White. Sophie didn't merely allude to her frustrations. She pointedly blamed White's coaching style, decisions, and overall leadership as major contributing factors to the divide within the team. According to Cunningham, White's inability to foster a unified environment had directly led to the growing rift between players. This bold statement sent shockwaves through the Mercury fan base and the wider basketball community, as it shifted the focus from internal team struggles to scrutinizing the methods of the head coach. To truly understand why Sophie Cunningham would make such a bold statement, it's important to examine the events leading up to her revelation.
At the fall, Cunningham the rebound in traffic. Cunningham from deep, splash.
The Phoenix Mercury, a team with a history of both success and struggles, had been underperforming in recent months, despite boasting a roster filled with exceptional talent. With players like Diana Taurasi, Brittany Griner, and Cunningham herself, the Mercury should have been contenders for a top spot in the league. However, their performances had been inconsistent, and it became evident that they were struggling to find any real rhythm on the court. At times, they looked disjointed and out of sync, which raised concerns about the team's ability to compete at a high level. Behind the scenes, things were no better. As the season progressed, players began expressing dissatisfaction with their roles on the team. Some felt sidelined, while others believed they were being misused by the coaching staff. This sense of frustration grew as the team's offensive strategies, which were supposed to be fast-paced and dynamic, weren't working, and their defensive schemes often left much to be desired. The Mercury weren't firing on all cylinders, and it became increasingly clear that something deeper was at play. It wasn't just about players underperforming, it was about a lack of trust in the system and in each other. Sophie Cunningham, one of the few bright spots for the Mercury, had been playing with tremendous passion and energy. She remained one of the team's most consistent contributors, but even she began to feel the weight of the disconnect between the players and the coaching staff. While Cunningham had remained dedicated to her role, her frustrations were evident. The lack of direction and open communication within the team had taken its toll on her, and in previous interviews, she had spoken generally about the need for the Mercury to improve their chemistry. However, it wasn't until this latest revelation that she directly tied the team's struggles to Coach White's leadership, opening the door for a much-needed conversation about accountability and change within the organization. Cunningham's frustrations with Coach Stephanie White seemed to stem from a fundamental difference in leadership styles. Sophie described White's approach as more authoritarian rather than collaborative. According to Cunningham, White made decisions without consulting the players or taking their input into account, which left many of them feeling disconnected from the overall strategy. In a sport like basketball, where teamwork and cohesion are essential to success, the lack of a unified vision was a major issue for the Mercury. Cunningham believed that White's top-down, rigid style of leadership was a key contributor to the growing divide within the team. Instead of fostering an environment where players felt heard and empowered, the Mercury found themselves operating in a way that lacked transparency and unity. One of the core issues Cunningham raised was White's inability or unwillingness to foster open dialogue with the players. Sophie emphasized that the best teams are those where players and coaches communicate openly and transparently. Without that, it becomes impossible to address concerns, identify areas for improvement, or build trust within the group. However, Cunningham described an environment where players felt excluded from critical discussions, particularly when it came to game planning, strategic adjustments, and tactical decisions. When a coach fails to actively engage with players and solicit their feedback, the team's sense of ownership and involvement diminishes. Cunningham made it clear that she didn't feel like her voice or the voices of her teammates were being heard or valued in the decision-making process. Cunningham also pointed to a series of tactical decisions made by White that further fueled her frustration. Sophie mentioned how the team's game plan seemed to change frequently, often without any real consultation with the players. These constant shifts in strategy left the team confused and disoriented, making it difficult for the players to understand what was expected of them. In particular, Cunningham noted that she found herself questioning her own role on the court. For someone like Sophie, who thrives in an environment where there's clarity and structure, the constant shifting of plans created a feeling of instability. It became increasingly difficult for players to find their footing when the game plan seemed to be evolving on the fly. This unpredictability took a toll on the team's performance, as players were unsure of how to execute their roles when the strategy was constantly in flux. Perhaps the most telling aspect of Cunningham's comments was her description of White's approach to managing player roles. According to Cunningham, there were several instances where players felt as though they were being misused, sidelined, or simply not utilized to their full potential. This led to a breakdown in team chemistry as players became frustrated with how they were being used, or in some cases not used at all. Cunningham herself noted that she often felt like she wasn't being deployed in a way that leveraged her strengths, and that her skills were being underutilized in key game situations. For a player of her caliber, this was deeply disheartening as it undermined her confidence and sense of purpose on the court. This sense of being undervalued added to the growing dissatisfaction within the locker room as more players began to feel similarly sidelined or mismanaged. The lack of alignment between the players and coaching staff only worsened the overall morale, creating a toxic atmosphere where trust and cohesion were in short supply. While Sophie Cunningham's comments clearly outlined her personal frustrations, it's essential to recognize that the issue of the locker room divide wasn't simply about one player. Cunningham confirmed that she wasn't the only one feeling disillusioned with Coach White's leadership. In fact, the division within the team was more widespread than initially thought. According to Cunningham, the locker room had become a place of growing tension, with some players openly supporting White and others distancing themselves from her. This growing division created a volatile environment where open communication was scarce and players were left to navigate their frustrations in isolation. The divide between players who continued to back White and those who felt alienated created a toxic atmosphere within the team. The situation was compounded by the fact that some players were clearly dissatisfied with the way things were being handled, while others remained reluctant to speak out. Many of those who were unhappy with White's leadership feared that voicing their concerns would lead to further conflict or jeopardize their position on the roster. This fear of speaking out only exacerbated the tension as it created an environment of silent resentment. Cunningham observed that this division wasn't only damaging to the players' morale, but it also significantly impacted the team's overall performance. When the locker room is divided, it's nearly impossible for the team to function cohesively on the court, as the lack of trust and unity undermines the effectiveness of their play. At the heart of this divide were disagreements about team strategy, leadership, and the direction the team was headed. Some players still believed in White's vision for the team, while others felt that her approach was no longer effective. This split led to further distrust between the players and the coaching staff, creating a rift that became increasingly difficult to bridge. It was clear that for the Mercury to regain their competitive edge, something had to change, both within the locker room and in the coaching strategy. Without this change, it seemed unlikely that the team would find success again anytime soon. The rift within the locker room wasn't just a matter of internal politics, it had a direct impact on the team's performance. The Phoenix Mercury's struggles on the court were closely tied to the lack of unity and cohesion within the locker room. On the floor, the players looked disjointed, with several instances where communication breakdowns led to missed opportunities. The chemistry that had once existed between the players was gone, and the Mercury found themselves falling short in crucial moments. One of the biggest issues was the lack of trust between the players. The team was not functioning as a unit, and this lack of unity became evident in their on-court performance. Whether it was poor passing, defensive lapses, or missed assignments, the Mercury couldn't seem to find a rhythm. Players were questioning each other's decisions, and the lack of a shared vision made it difficult for them to execute plays effectively. Cunningham, despite her individual performances, couldn't carry the team on her own. The team's struggles were a reflection of the internal discord, and it was clear that they were not playing as a cohesive unit. When a team is divided, it's nearly impossible to play to the best of its abilities, and that's exactly what happened with the Phoenix Mercury. With Sophie Cunningham's explosive comments, the spotlight now falls squarely on coach Stephanie White. The backlash has been significant, and many are questioning her future with the team. Some argue that White's leadership is outdated and that her failure to connect with the players has led to the team's struggles. Others believe that she needs more time to adjust her approach and that it's too early to judge her based on the challenges she's faced so far. What's clear is that White now finds herself in a precarious position. The internal strife has been exposed, and her leadership is being directly questioned by one of her star players. If White hopes to salvage her relationship with the team and restore order in the locker room, she will need to make significant changes. This could involve altering her coaching style, opening up communication with the players, and addressing the concerns that have been raised about her tactics. For White, this could be a make-or-break moment in her career. If she can't find a way to mend the rift in the locker room and regain the trust of her players, her tenure with the Mercury may be short-lived. However, if she can make the necessary adjustments and re-establish a sense of unity, she may yet turn the season around and prove that she is the right coach for the job. For Sophie Cunningham, the road ahead is unclear. While her comments have undoubtedly raised her profile, they have also placed her at the center of a controversy that could affect her standing within the team. Cunningham will need to continue playing at a high level while also helping to bridge the divide in the locker room. Her leadership and ability to rally her teammates will be crucial in determining how the Mercury move forward. As for the Phoenix Mercury, the future of the team depends on whether they can put aside their differences and work together as a unit. The upcoming games will be crucial in determining whether the team can rebound from this internal conflict, or if the rift will be too deep to overcome. The situation is certainly one to watch, as the Phoenix Mercury face an uncertain future with their internal dynamics in disarray. The ball is now in the court of Stephanie White and her players. Will they come together to turn things around, or is this the beginning of the end for the team as we know it? Only time will tell. In conclusion, Sophie Cunningham's bombshell revelation about the Phoenix Mercury's locker room divide has exposed a deep-seated issue within the team. With tensions running high and trust in question, the Mercury's future now hangs in the balance. The big question remains, can they overcome these internal struggles, or is this the beginning of the end for their championship hopes? Only time will tell.